Turtwig might be my favorite Pokemon of all time, but honestly, it's a terrible Pokemon. This gave me an idea though. Is it possible to beat all of Pokemon Scarlet using nothing but this one squishy little turtle? Especially if I've added extra rules to make this challenge absolutely excruciating. You'll just have to watch and find out. First things first, I head to the professor to pick my starter. But with no Turtwig in sight, I grab the first thing I see with wings and fly over to the Kitakami region. Ah, just in time. Have this egg. Why, thank you. I wonder what could be inside. That's not right. Back to square one. So again, we grab the duck, hop on its back, fly to Kitakami, and grab the egg from the professor. And luck is on our side. A tiny weed turtle hatches from the egg. And one thing I love about Turtwig is that unlike a certain set of other Pokemon, this one actually keeps all four legs firmly on the ground. We name our little weed turtle Oogway, and with that, we're off on our adventure. Our first hurdle is the bug-type gym leader Katie, who kicks things off with her Nimble, and out comes Oogway ready for action. We might be at a type disadvantage, but what could a few bug types do to the greatest Pokemon of all time? Oh. Well, back to the drawing board. But fear not, we have a plan. For the third time, we hop on our trusty Quaxly and fly to Kitakami. We snag the TM for Smackdown so we can violently squash Katie's best friends. And hey, why not pick up the leftovers item? This half-eaten piece of compost will restore Oogway's health each turn. For some reason. And with that, we challenge Katie once again. And this time, nothing can go wrong. It went horribly wrong. Okay, new plan. We can do this. This time, we get the TM for Swords Dance, because while running with scissors is a bad idea, dancing with swords is not. Okay, this time, nothing can go wrong. Right? We set up with Swords Dance twice and obliterate Katie's Nimble with a single smackdown. Tarantula suffers a similar fate, and all that's left is Teddy Ursa. Did I mention we're not allowing terrestrialization? No? Yeah, that seems about right.
You have no idea what the f*** you're doing, do you?
I do not. But I knew we could do better. So once again, we challenge Katie. We do the exact same thing, but this time, one Swords Dance is enough. With a bit of extra health, Oogway survives the Fury Cutter and can squish Katie's creepy crawly teddy bear flat. Despite all odds, we made it past the first gym leader in one piece, just in time to face our next challenge. Uh-oh. Now, facing a massive stone crab induced with organic performance enhancers might seem like a tough challenge, but hey, at least we've got... Yeah, we're screwed. We send out our little grass turtle against the massive stone crab, and after the previous beatdown we had to endure, I expected nothing. But it turns out that spitting seeds at Cloth works surprisingly well. Very well. And it's not too long before we've taken out the giant crab. And after a well-earned victory, Oogway was finally ready to transcend into a higher form.
My time has come. Fight!
So with Cloth defeated, the next battle ahead of us was against the Grass-type gym leader Brassius, which doesn't seem all that bad considering we're a Grass-type ourselves. But then you remember his terrestrializing Sudowoodo, whose attack and defense stats are almost double ours. I know, every time I've said this so far, it's gone south. But this time, I promise we had a plan. This time, we knew how to curse.
That's right, motherfucker.
Wrong kind of curse. This curse increases our attack and defense stats at the cost of our speed. So after setting that up, all we had to do is spam Smackdown. And somehow, it worked out. With our second gym badge in hand, our next opponent was Titan Bombardier. I'm dead. So that didn't go exactly the way I hoped it would, but the great part about Pokemon is that if you don't have the brain capacity to outsmart your opponents, you can always just murder innocent bystanders in order to level up to the point where strategy doesn't matter. So I did just that, for like 2 minutes, after which I got bored. So after my morally questionable leveling up strategy, I gave Bombardier another shot, hoping for a different outcome. Well, that's unfortunate. So we had to go back to the drawing board. What do you think, Oogway?
If the bird we must submit, Psyduck homicide we shall commit. What?
Good idea. After wiping out the local Psyduck population, we were finally ready to challenge Bombardier again. And all those Psyduck didn't die for nothing, because Oogway is a beast. Having beaten Bombardier, I decided to take on Giacomo of Team Star, but there's one problem I hadn't accounted for. We need 3 Pokemon to even battle him. So there you have it, folks. Pokemon Scarlet is apparently not possible to beat with just one Turtwig. Yeah, no, we're not doing that. That's lame. Instead, we're gonna bend some rules. So we needed 2 new temporary sidekicks to be able to do the Star Raid. Now, who is worthy of fulfilling such a role?
Monkey.
Taking Oogway's advice, we catch an unsuspecting Mankey and Skiddo. Now, with 3 Pokemon on my team, including Oogway of course, we storm into the Team Star base and eventually make it to the big boss. But before that, I box the extra Pokemon and head into battle with just my Turtwig. So now, we're facing off against Giacomo, who has a literal killing machine. What do we have? A Weed Turtle. This should be interesting. Giacomo leads with a Bisharp, who barely dents us, which gives us the chance to set up until Tiny Turtwig is an absolute beast. We can then take out Bisharp with ease, but there's one thing I hadn't accounted for. The Starmobile has Snarl, which affects our special defense, not our physical defense. So basically, having learned absolutely nothing, I challenged Giacomo once again with the exact same strategy, because this time, things will be different. Things weren't different. So, after stopping to think for a second, I realized this isn't working. I go to find the TM for Protect, because if we can't outmuscle them, we'll resort to stalling. This will essentially allow us to heal twice as much from our leftovers, because we can stall every other turn. I didn't want it to come to stalling, but I mean, look at this thing. How is that gonna beat this?
I'm right here, you know.
But even with our new and improved stalling strat, Giacomo was just too strong. So we had to find a different way. And if there's one thing we've learned from this run, it's that if a battle is too hard, you can always stuff your companion with rare candies and everything works out. And just like that, we unleashed the finishing blow onto the Starmobile. After finally dealing with Giacomo, I started pondering on future challenges. And oh god, I don't even want to think about that. So, in the meantime, we're just gonna live in blissful ignorance and face Iono, the electric-type gym leader. Sheesh, is this how the rest of the world sees us content creators? I'm not sure how I feel about that. Iono's team looks pretty scary, with her ace being a Mismagius with no weaknesses. But we have a Weed Turtle, and so we set up our stats until Oogway reaches peak swollenness. And then, well...
And Turtwig. Smash.
We have done well, my friend. It's time for me to...
Nope.
And then it was time for Titan Earthworm, which, considering I have access to a ground-type move, doesn't sound impossible. But again, there's one thing I overlooked.
I'm in danger!
If I hit this big turd with any ground-type move, it just restores health and deals 0 damage. So I had virtually nothing that could hurt Earthworm significantly. So in conclusion, we die. Realizing Earthworm won't be bested anytime soon, I decide to take on the next challenge against Water-type leader Kofu, which, as a Grass-type, doesn't seem like a very hard battle. And I think Kofu knew what was about to hit him.
It seems that dear Kofu ran away like a little bit.
And so we're launched into a series of side quests, like partaking in an auction as a kid. Yay! More money equals winning! Recklessly spending Kofu's money means we've passed his challenge, and so it's time to battle him. And this goes pretty much exactly as you'd expect. His Veluza does some decent damage with Pluck, but after a couple Trailblazes and a Sword Stance, Veluza is cooked. Wugtrio's out next, but thanks to the stat boosts, one Trailblaze does the trick, and not even Kofu's Crabominable can withstand a Trailblaze attack, which means we get another easy gym badge. And after that little confidence booster, I decided to try my luck with Earthworm again. This might have been a mistake, but surprisingly, we actually manage well against the Earthworm. Our increased level means we can take his hits fairly well, while our hits do a respectable amount back. And hey, look at that! We've slain Titan Earthworm. Despite the continuous roadblocks we've faced with pretty much every battle ever in this run, we're doing okay. Well, we had a good run. It was fun while it lasted. So to proceed with this challenge, we somehow have to beat an entire team of fire types, including a massive Starmobile, all while in harsh sunlight. Yeah, okay. But there's not really a way around this, so I challenge Team Star Boss Mela. Her Torkoal sets up Sun as soon as it enters battle, making her already devastating moves hit even harder. And Torkoal also has Clear Smog, which makes setting up an absolute Sisyphean task. I spent a disgusting amount of time trying to somehow find something that worked. But after dying for the millionth time, I knew I needed to reevaluate my strategy. My plan was to slap on an Eviolite, which boosts our defenses, and just hope I don't get burnt. With that, we head into battle. I use Bulldoze to deal a good chunk of damage to Torkoal, while Mela can't do as much damage back. I get in a cheeky sword stance before having to heal my health with Synthesis. Unfortunately, we get hit with Clear Smog, so my stat boosts are now gone. I get in one more sword stance before landing the killing blow on Torkoal. And so, after dealing with Torkoal, it's time to face my worst nightmare. By now, I know the Starmobile always uses Screech first, so this means we can heal up a ton of health using Synthesis. Blazing Torque does almost half of our health's worth of damage, but Bulldoze does a lot more damage back. And so, we can survive one more attack from Mela, which is all we need to finish off the Starmobile. That wasn't so hard, right? Despite all odds, we made it past Mela alive, and just in time to face... Dang it, Grass type, why do you have so many weaknesses? Why am I not surprised? So the plan was to get rid of Skuntank as fast as possible so as to not get poisoned by Toxic, and then set up our attack and speed versus Muck. But this doesn't really pan out the way I'd hoped. So when strategy fails, there's always another option. Force feeding rare candies to Oogway. And where do we get that many rare candies, you ask? Well, Terra Raids, of course. Nothing like battling crystalline creatures to get your hands on some performance-enhancing substances. So after grinding some raids and stuffing my poor companion full with magic candy to the point where he grows into an unstoppable force of nature, we reattempt the Atticus fight. Now all we need is to get lucky and hope that Atticus doesn't spam Toxic on the first turn. Unfortunately, he really likes to do that. But after a string of bad luck, we finally catch a break and deal with Skuntank while setting up our speed using Trailblaze. Now resorting to the original strategy, we set up against the Muck. And now we just have to not mess up. We messed up. Once again, we're back to square one. Reveroom is insanely fast and hits like a truck. So how in the world am I gonna get past him? And after once again resorting to performance enhancers, we take on Atticus again. We get lucky and get rid of Skuntank before he decides to use Toxic. Muck is out next, and this time we have a lot more health left, which means we can set up no problem. After spamming Trailblaze, we're even faster than Reveroom, which means one Bulldoze takes him out. And at this point, we're just too powerful, and the Starmobile goes down as well, which means we've beaten Atticus while only being 22 levels higher than his ace. And now we face Larry, the normal type gym leader, who for once doesn't have a type advantage against us. Never mind. I should just quit my job. I wish I could just slurp up noodles all day instead.
Quit, don't quit. Noodles, don't noodles.
What is this turtle on? Anyway, Larry leads with his Komala, and as you'd expect, we're already at peak swollenness. But Komala does land a cheeky yawn, which might complicate things. Well, not really. We wake up, hit him with Trailblaze, and put Komala in an actual coma. The Dunsparce really doesn't stand a chance, but she does paralyze us, which, again, annoying, but it's really only an inconvenience for our juiced up murder turtle. Now, last out is the Pokemon that could actually pose a threat. Or, well, not really. Oogway is a monster. Guess your Turtwig is pretty good after all.
Noodles.
What does it mean? With Larry beaten, we made our way out of the gym, where a little surprise was waiting for us in the form of Nemona. Wait, what the heck is that thing? Oh well, Oogway, you know what to do. With Nemona defeated, everything's going smoothly until suddenly it isn't. Next up is Ghost-type leader Rhyme, and this battle is a double battle, meaning we need at least 2 Pokemon to participate. And as you've probably realized, the title of this video is not Can You Beat Pokemon Scarlet with 2 Pokemon? We had to get around this somehow, so I decided the best course of action was to bring back an old friend. Oogway and Skiddo go into battle, and well, Skiddo dies pretty much the second it touches the ground. But even though this was a 2v1 now, our good old reliable strategy did not disappoint. Plus, the bloodthirsty audience showers us with cheers every time we KO one of Rhyme's Pokemon, granting additional stat boosts. So having achieved peak physique, it was just a matter of spamming Trailblaze and Crunch before Rhyme's entire team actually turned into ghosts. Even her terrestrialized toxicity goes down in a single hit. And there you have it. This tiny turtle mopped the floor with Rhyme's team despite it being a 2v1, earning us the 6th gym badge. Give a like for our champion Turtwig and his hard work. With 6 badges to our name, we only have 2 left to go. But first, we're diving straight into the next Titan battle against Great Tusk. This Paradox Pokemon might sound like trouble, but hey, we've got a tiny leaf turtle that devours big ground types for breakfast. We've equipped Oogway with Leech Seed for this one, which means we can slowly sap away the Titan's health. Great Tusk is faster than us, but can't really hurt us. And a single Seed Bomb deals massive damage back, so this one's over pretty fast. And the next Titan stage goes pretty much exactly the same way. Leech Seed, Seed Bomb, and... So that was easy, but as we've learned the hard way, if anything's ever easy in this run, you know something's about to smack you right in the face. And this one, Nemona's the one ready to serve a big reality check. Well, the problem isn't that Nemona is a tough opponent, it's more so that I am just incredibly stupid. Because I've equipped Turtwig with nothing but grass-type moves, which, yeah, that's a problem. So I'm left with no choice but to watch as Oogway's health slowly withers away. Oh, the outcome of this battle is completely inconsequential? Nice. On to the 7th gym. In this gym, we're facing the Psychic-type gym leader Tulip. It's a neutral type matchup, so this should be fairly straightforward. Luckily, Fairy Graph is completely harmless, so you know exactly what's about to happen. That's right, high stats equal total destruction equals another gem badge. 7 down, 1 to go. And yes, you guessed it, we're weak to this one too. We're up against Grusha, the Ice-type leader. His first Pokemon is Frostmoth, which has 2 typings that I'm weak to. But that's never stopped me from setting up once again. Or, well, that's until I realized that I may have messed up, because Frostmoth hits us with a stat-boosted Blizzard attack, which would be devastating, but... we actually get lucky. And on the next turn, the same thing happens. I don't know how to react. Usually, I'm the one doing the missing. Anyway, with Frostmoth out of the equation, my little Turtwig has become a weapon of mass destruction. So the rest of the battle is pretty straightforward. And just like that, we've collected every gem badge with just a single Turtwig. But before we can take on the champion, there are just a few more loose ends that need to be tied up. One of those ends is Team Star, and we still have 2 of these bosses to beat. The first one being Ortega. He's got fairy types, which doesn't sound impossible to beat. I mean, as long as the RNG doesn't screw me over. Of course. Well, this attempt might not have been very convincing, but nobody beats Turtwig and gets away with it. This time, we luckily don't get paralyzed, and so we can comfortably set up until we become a tiny, godly turtle. Oopsie, did you just realize how outmatched you are? Who's outmatched now? You messed with the wrong weed turtle. With our stat buffs, we can then watch as Turtwig mercilessly steamrolls through Ortega's team. But wait, Team Star still has a last stand. We still had the strongest member, Eri, to take care of. But before that, we had to deal with the Titan Tatsugiri and Dondozo. It might be a giant lake monster, but we have a tiny weed turtle of mass destruction. In other words, we know a grass type move. And then there was just Tatsugiri left. Because of its part dragon typing, this one was a bit more challenging. I go for Leech Seed this time to chip away at Tatsugiri's health and keep me healthy at the same time. But out of nowhere, the Titan lands a critical hit Dragon Pulse that Turtwig just barely survived. But no one, not even a Dragon Sushi, can stand in the way of a Kung Fu master such as Oogway. I retaliate by spamming Trailblaze until eventually Tatsugiri goes down. And that means we've bested all of Paldea's Titans and become a true Dragon Warrior. But we can't celebrate just yet, because you know who else is proficient in fighting? A stacked team of buff, hard-hitting fighting types led by Team Star Boss Eri. And as if that wasn't hard enough, her first Pokemon is the part poison type Toxicroak. As you'd probably expect by now, the first thing I did was to try and set up. But Toxicroak knew Poison Jab, so that really didn't work out the first time. Or the second. Or the third. So after failing over and over again, I knew what we had to do. And after grinding for so long that the sun had literally started to set, we try the battle one more time. This time, I try to take out Toxicroak as fast as possible. But even after all the grinding, Toxicroak still did a devastating amount of damage to us. We are able to land a Zen Headbutt that takes out Toxicroak, but we're not exactly in the best position here. Next out is Annihilate, who does heaps of damage with close combat. I counter with Trailblaze to set up speed, but unfortunately, Oogway is still not faster on the next turn, leaving him open to another close combat. This leaves us on just 7 HP. I take out Annihilate with another Trailblaze, raising my speed again. And now, finally, I'm fast enough to outspeed Passimian, meaning we can heal up using Synthesis. With Passimian being pretty much harmless to us, it was time to set up with Swords Dance, and the rest, well, I know you've seen this before. And with Eri defeated, we just had one final objective. It is time to take on the Pokemon League. Despite all the hardships we've faced so far, I believe in Oogway the Turtwig. The little guy has become a swords dancing monster that even the Elite Four will run in terror from. So the only thing left to do is to head into the league and kick some butt. Yeah, okay, so maybe it's not gonna be that easy, but this little turtle has come too far to give up now. So for the second time, I head into the Pokemon League. By now, you probably think you know exactly how this battle is gonna go. Turtwig's gonna set up, spam attacks, and win. Well, I tried that, but... Alright, new plan. Don't get frozen. But there was one problem. That's not a very easy thing to do. We're not in a great position, so the only thing I can do now is pray for Oogway to thaw out. Or for Whiscash to somehow miss a block of ice that is literally not moving. Yup, that makes sense. But rationality aside, this was a massive blessing for us because it means we gain one free turn. And thankfully, Oogway thaws out on the next turn. Just like that, we're back in the battle. After using Synthesis to restore health, we are back to setting up. It's a simple formula really. Swords Dance, destroy Whiscash, and sweep. Or at least so I thought. Part Fire-type Camerupt, who would otherwise be a problem, is no match for Swole Turtwig. But Rika sends out Donphan next, who hangs on with just 1 HP thanks to Sturdy. And just to pour salt on the wound, she manages to poison us with a Poison Jab. At 1 HP, a strong gust of wind would be enough to send Donphan to the Shadow Realm, so a Trailblaze is more than enough to seal the deal. Dugtrio is a total pushover, and so Rika was down to her Clodsire, who actually tries to stall using Protect, which honestly puts us in a tough spot after the Sandstorm and Poison damage. Luckily, Rika doesn't go for a double Protect, and we can finally take out her last Pokemon. So we just barely beat the very first member of the Elite Four, one we had a type advantage against. Yeah, that's very reassuring. But as if we haven't struggled enough already, next I have to take on a monster, a killing machine, an absolute nightmare.
Poppy.
Now, I know what you're thinking. She's just a baby. How bad could she be? Well, think again. Poppy uses steel types, which is bad news for me because steel is a pretty bulky typing. But with determination and a dream, Tiny Weed Turtle and I head into battle. The plan is to leech seed Caparaja to stay alive while I set up. But it turns out that Caparaja has the move Heavy Slam, a move that deals more damage the more the user outweighs its target. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the literal elephant made of metal is heavier than our little weed turtle. Needless to say, Caparaja absolutely squashed us. And by the time Poppy sent out her Corviknight, you know, the Pokemon that actually has a type advantage against us, we barely had any health left. So things aren't great. I barely get past Poppy's first Pokemon, and once I do, I'm faced with an even tougher Pokemon. But of course, naively, I go into the same battle again, thinking things might be different. And shocker, they're not. So how many times do you think this is gonna take? Is it gonna be 5? Maybe 50? Leave your guesses in the comments below. But 30 excruciating minutes later, we had a break in the case. I start the battle like I have oh so many times before, by setting up. But this time, I don't get too greedy. That way, I can take out Caparaja before taking too much damage. And that's important because next up is Corviknight. Having done this battle countless times, I happen to know that Corviknight always uses Iron Defense first, so I take the chance to heal Oogway with Synthesis. Now, here's a fun little detail. Anytime Corviknight uses Brave Bird, it takes a pretty big chunk of recoil damage. So all I have to do is to use Synthesis and occasionally set up my attack when I have the chance, until Corviknight is in range for one final Trail Blade. And with that, we finally get past the Pokemon that's been giving me so much headache. Next out is Magnezone, who could cause trouble, but Poppy just decides to use Light Screen for some reason, so I guess that's an easy KO. And from there, this battle looked pretty similar to any other battle in this run. That's 2 down, but guess what? Things will not get any easier, because next out is Larry, and he definitely learned from our last encounter because he's running a full-on flying team this time around. Larry leads with Tropius, and I decide to stick to my base strategy and set up. Next, Larry uses Sunny Day, so I think, great, now I'll heal up even more health with Synthesis. But there is something I haven't accounted for. Tropius has the Chlorophyll ability, meaning his speed doubles in sunlight. Now, Air Slash doesn't do too much damage, but it does, however, cause flinching, which isn't fun, especially when it happens at the worst possible time. Since Tropius now outspeeds me, all I can do is sit back and watch as— what in the BS mechanic is this? That's right, the power of friendship prevails. And thanks to this, Oogway gets a second chance. Now, all we have to do is turn our little turtle into a rock-smacking, bird-whacking god of a turtle. And once we do, it's just a matter of spamming Rock Throw. And not a single one of Larry's Pokemon can do anything about it. Just like that, we have one more Elite Four member to go. But this is not just another Elite Four member. And I realize I've said this about pretty much every Elite Four so far, but this time I really mean it. Hassel runs a Dragon-type team, which already resists grass. And on top of that, Larry also has 3 Pokemon with a secondary typing that's super effective against us. I can't even get past his first Pokemon, a Noivern that keeps spamming Air Slash and making me flinch. The one-time exception that I did get past Noivern, I got destroyed by his Poison-type Dragalge. Seriously, why does the Grass type have so many weaknesses? I come to the conclusion that the only way I could possibly win this is if the 95% accurate Air Slash misses once, so that we can get past Noivern without taking too much damage. In other words, the chances of even having a shot at winning are 1 in 20. Oh yeah, I forgot about cheesy BS mechanics. Looks like friendship saves the day once again, and this gives me the chance to get rid of Noivern and then heal up using Synthesis once Dragalge is out. I then get rid of Dragalge with just one Zen Headbutt before Flapple comes out. Now, I am shaking because I've never gotten this far, but I decide the best course of action is to finally set up. And to my delight, Flapple is absolutely harmless. This means that, yup, you guessed it, after Oogway reached peak buffness, it was sweeping time. And suddenly, we have one final obstacle remaining. After everything we had endured, could this tiny leaf turtle really be strong enough to take on the strongest trainer in Paldea? It is time to challenge champion Geeta. With that, the final battle begins. And this battle was so much harder than any of the gym leaders, Titans, and Elite Four members combined. Not because Geeta is a strong and challenging champion. No. It was so very difficult because I have never, ever in any run had such bad luck with RNG. Let me explain. Her first Pokemon, Espathra, is fairly strong, so I decide the best course of action is to get rid of it ASAP. After Espathra, Geeta sends out her Veluza, who can't really hurt me, so I decide that this is the Pokemon I'll set up against. But this is apparently not a very easy thing to do, because Veluza has Ice Fang, which allegedly has a 10% chance to freeze the target. Okay, well, we still have a 20% chance to thaw out each turn, so it shouldn't be that bad. It's that bad. But purely statistically speaking, this surely wouldn't happen again. Wow, okay, it happened again. I attempted this battle 11 times in a row, and I couldn't believe my eyes as the same thing happened exactly the same way all 11 times. Turtwig freezes after the second Ice Fang and stays frozen for 5 more turns before Veluza takes us out. I was at the brink of insanity. The odds of this happening are so low that I'm not even gonna read them out. That's right, I did the math. For reference, I am more likely to find 4 shiny Pokemon, get struck by lightning, or even win the lottery than for this to happen. It got to a point where I thought my game was broken because the same exact thing kept happening. But like a child throwing a tantrum, I stubbornly reattempted the battle over and over again, hoping the RNG would spare me, until I finally realized it wouldn't happen. I took some time to reflect. Maybe if something doesn't work many times over, then I should maybe try a different approach. So that's what I do. I start off the battle the same way as before, using Swords Dance once and then taking out Espathra. Veluza comes out next, but instead of setting up, I get rid of it using Trail Blaze. Next out is Avalugg, who apparently can't do much damage to us, which means all this time, I could have just set up against her instead. Great. Just great. So it really was that simple all along. Since freezing was apparently an inevitable outcome, I could just not give Geeta the chance. And it worked, because the rest of her team stood no chance against buff Oogway. One Bulldoze deals with Kingambit. Go-Goat needs 2 Bulldozes, but since it just uses a setup move, it's no problem. Geeta is then down to her ace. But a quad-effective Bulldoze is enough to forever cement Oogway as the strongest little Turtwig that will ever walk this earth. And there you have it. We became champion of Paldea with nothing but a Turtwig. And after all this, maybe he deserves to evolve.